Stephen Mansfield, New York Times bestselling author and speaker.
Doug Tenaple, I'm the creator of Earthworm Jim.
Tweet groups.
I'm Victor Dweck. Joseph Carter, I'm the Mink Man.
This is Dave Baker from Forged in Fire.
This is Leanne Morgan. I'm a comedian, and this is why you should never.
Don't ever. Not ever.
Don't waste your time.
Oh, you really should.
Listen to those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
Where I get a particularly
Hey everybody, welcome to the Reverend and the Reprobate. I am Lucas Pinkett. I'll be playing the part of the Reverend today, a real life Reverend, as it so happens. And with me, as always, is my partner in crime,
sunburnt.
You are not
Reprobate.
sunburnt. It's
particularly
Dan Gibson.
bad sunburn.
So, what happened to your arm there?
Okay, so several things.
Tell the short version of this story.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to give headlines.
As Danley has mentioned several times during this, we've got a screen where we can see ourselves.
Well, it hasn't happened yet.
Or the people that we're interviewing in Zoom. Danley has said, my arm, look at my arm on the TV. So many times, as people are looking at your arm on the TV.
I got burned because I ran out of the way that I like to light my chimney. Yeah, so I got lighter fluid.
Yep.
Did not remove the lid off of the chimney. Used a significant amount of lighter fluid inside of the chimney, and then lit it with a small handheld lighter, which shot a fireball that burned all of my hair off. I don't know if you can see, but it's up to here.
We can't.
And I have to periodically put aloe on it for my health
during the episode.
So get ready to see that.
Yeah, make sure that you're saddled up and ready for that. Today on our sweet airwaves, we have David Dietrich, who is the David Dietrich. He is the founder of Creation Films. He's the producer. Creator Films. Man, I butchered that. I butchered that so many times. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Reverend and the Reprobate. We're fine. So the founder of Creator Films. It's funny, it's right here in front of me, and I even said it wrong. So he's the founder of Creator Films.com. He is the producer and director of About Hope, which is a movie that came out early 2020. Had a really great run in theaters, was a top 20 film for about 5 weeks for a really small studio out of the middle of California. Was really cool. We talked to him about, surprise, worldviews in films. We talked to him.
You bring up Schaefer.
Yeah, I bring up Francis Schaefer, and you bring up Nancy Pearcey. Yeah. So we talked to him a little bit about that, about the challenges of making good art as a small independent studio, what that looks like, how crowdsourcing has changed the way that they make movies. And we do get into a little bit about what his actual theory on aliens is in Controlled Rowdiness.
Yeah.
And whether or not Dietrich Bader, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was better groomed.
Yeah. Well, hey, before we get in, if you would go leave us a comment, leave us a review on Apple iTunes. We might even do a segment later where we read some of your reviews. So it would mean a lot to us. And with no further ado, Dietrich Bader, the Dietrich Bader. David Dietrich.
Hey, on our airwaves today, we have
everybody,
a very successful movie producer and director, but a guy who is in charge of Creator Studios. He's worked very closely with our good friend Brennan Hollingsworth, which is how we heard about him. And coming with that endorsement, we know this will be one of the most mediocrest interviews that we do. It's the world's okayest writer, director, and producer. It's David Dietrich. Dude, what's going on, man?
You know, surviving day by day.
Yeah, I know that feeling all too well. So I want to start off. Let's start with we'll talk about some of the big things that are happening with Creator Studios here in a little bit. I want to start with my first exposure to you, which was About Hope. Talk to me about the movie About Hope. What was the sort of the impetus behind it? What inspired it? But mostly, I want to know, how difficult is it to convince people that there can be such a good thing as good Christian art?
That's more than one question.
Yeah, I want to start off with this question, which is 3 questions, and see how well you do. The timer starts now.
Very astute counting. So
About Hope was a concept I had in college. A single guy, going through a growth pattern in my faith, or a growth moment, and it's kind of out on your own, and a single guy, I want to be married. I'm looking for a girl, and I start kind of putting that before the Lord and thinking like, gosh, I want this and this and this, and then thinking like, well, I don't know what's good for me. like only the Lord knows me better than I do. And he knows my needs. He knows my desires. He knows the ones that are good, the ones that are bad. And I just kind of started germinating on this idea of like my will versus God's will. And, thought, okay, well, I have all these hopes that I'm looking for. And then I've got the things that God wants. And it just turned into this story about a artist looking for love, and how God is involved in that, and how we learn through it, and that it's more about loving someone else than finding someone to fit your needs. And we tried to do it in a light, funny, sappy, romantic comedy sort of way. And so far, so good. I mean, we've got some good reviews, still 4-star on Amazon, despite many haters. I have thought about doing social media posts, reading some of the reviews from Amazon.
I would love that. I would love it. What's the best negative Amazon
give the
review?
hate some sunlight.
Oh, yeah. The best thing is there's two things that come up very often. There's the people who are like, oh, you snuck Jesus in there, and they're like really mad about it. And I was like, did you read the description? Like it says faith in the description. Like, we didn't sneak. Like it was presented. So those are kind of funny depending upon the severity of it.
These people and their faith.
Exactly.
I stole a line from you.
I think the funniest thing for me is like we have our top positive and our top negative review. And the top positive review is like, sweet Sunday, afternoon, just fun, We love it. It's perfect amount of faith, perfect amount of this, characters are real, all that kind of stuff. And then the one under it is like, this isn't a Christian movie. They do this or they have that. And I'm like,
no, so it's the other side.
Yeah, that's the one.
So you have the I don't want any faith, and then, well, they didn't do the faith enough, or they didn't do it right.
Yep.
And the people
there was
are like,
no
hey, that was
clear
a fun
presentation from a pastor of the 3 points of the gospel.
Oh my god!
I mean, just all of that kind of.
This doesn't line up with my particular set.
Yeah. I'll just say this: if somebody is writing that kind of review, you know that they're an Arminian. So there you go.
There you go.
Just tell them, hey, look, it's my free will to choose, and they.
Do you think that Calvin is a Calvinist?
Like Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes?
No, Calvin, my uncle
your
Calvin.
Uncle? I have no idea.
Okay, sorry. Calvin versus Arminian Calvinist.
Yeah,
it would make a great Calvin.
Calvin the Arminian.
Those are Danley's vocabulary words for this week.
That's all I know.
Yeah, that's it.
So 4-star rewiew on Amazon. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've got great actors in it. I mean, David Lago's an Emmy Award winner. Victor Marx is not an actor, but is an amazing humanitarian kind of guy who's going out and, just making impact in places where there's suffering, there's trauma. They do stuff in Iraq and Cambodia and, Central America. I mean, like all over the place. And, it's just, we like it. I always say it's the worst film I'll ever make. And I'm really proud that we started here because, it's our first feature film. We put it out there. We did it on a budget. And I think, it's awesome when people think that you spent 5 times the amount of money on making the movie than you actually did.
What was the budget? Because I had read that you had raised roughly $200K for the film. Was that right?
No. No. I really shouldn't put these numbers out there because then people will want to lowball us on purchasing it. But it was a $65,000 production budget.
This just in.
Yeah, we had about 15 to 20 in post-production, and we had some marketing and then, company expenses and stuff like that, over and beyond. But, we did it, on less than $100,000. And that was paying, we didn't do it, it wasn't a SAG film, Screen Actors Guild, but we paid SAG minimums, unfortunately, the Screen Actors Guild, there's just a lot of additional paperwork and expense that comes with doing a film like that. So being our first one, we opted not to add complexity, but to remove complexity from the equation.
Where was this shot, by the way?
We shot it in Southern California, so mostly in Corona, California, but in the surrounding areas around there as well.
Okay, great. Well, it looks, the cinematography looks great. The editing looks great. Like, it looks like a movie with a much bigger budget. I agree.
Yeah. We get, distributors will say anywhere between $300,000 and $500,000 is what they would expect, and that's mostly because, there's good cast, but there's not, A-list stars or even.
It didn't have a Baldwin.
We don't have a Baldwin. No Kevin Sorbo, no Dean Cain.
Wes Halula's going to be so upset.
Who's the other one? Who's Saved by the Bell? No, he wasn't Saved by the Bell.
You're talking about Mario Lopez?
No,
Zach. What is this?
It wasn't Saved by the Bell.
Paul Gosselaar, right? Or
he's the guy who was in.
This is great podcasting.
It is. It's fantastic.
This is really good. This
right
is
now,
what our listeners tune in.
100 people out there yelling the name.
Kirk Cameron. It wasn't Saved by the Bell. It was Growing Pains.
Saved by the Bell? And you were Kirk Cameron?
Yes. Kirk Cameron. Yeah.
That is my biggest critique of the movie is that
I did a bad job.
Danley did a bad job. It's a Christian movie without Kirk Cameron, so there's just not enough Jesus in there. Yeah. It doesn't make, I don't really feel like there's a struggle because Kirk Cameron isn't telling me about how the firefighters aren't good dads.
I'm fine with it, by the way.
But I love what Kirk is doing. I just,
that's a very safe political thing for you to say. Say, David, we're like throwing bear traps all around him to say, hey, here you go.
I'm indifferent to everything that he does. It's fine. Yeah. It's great. It's fine. It's okay.
The Lord is using Kirk in wonderful and mysterious ways, and not my movies. So that's good. I like it.
There's it kind of gets to the question that you asked about, how hard is it to make faith-based art or Christian art or something like that? Yeah. And if you didn't ask that, I'm just going to say that.
No, there was a question in there that was
right. Yeah,
I asked that.
It might have gotten lost in my mind, and sometimes I make things up.
No, I asked that for sure.
I think the most difficult thing about doing that is everybody wants their standard to be the standard. And, like I'm in a group on Facebook with, it's Christian filmmakers.
You're in a group on?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's that? A group on or in within Facebook.
Right? Oh, okay. In Meta.
Yes. In Meta. Oh, yes. In Meta. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm going to stop emailing you. I'm so sorry. You're doing great. I'm being a jerk. Go ahead.
It's, Brandon warned me,
I'm sure I was on a particular mood with Brandon too.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. But
yeah, Brandon was
great. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So, but every week it seems like, somebody wants to define what Christian art is. And, I'm like, Christian art is art made by Christians, period. That's it. And some of that is going to be highly evangelistic. Some of that is going to not be. If I make, if I make a sweet story about a couple falling in love and it's just about a couple falling in love, well, it's art made by a Christian because art does not have a religious affiliation, right? And if you look at the parables of Jesus, those who have ears to hear, eyes to see, can decipher the deeper meaning behind those parables. And he'll explain them sometimes, but sometimes he doesn't, and I think story is something that God has given us. And the beautiful thing about God's truth is that it can come out of something that a non-Christian made. God's truth is God's truth. It's not mine. And if I'm a Christian and God has given me a conviction to make art, then I need to follow that conviction and I need to align it with the Word of God, because any art that I'm making is by default communication. It by default has values, goals, ideology, everything that I see in my worldview ingrained into that art. And as a believer, if I'm making art that is coming from where my heart is. And as long as my heart is aligned with God's heart, as long as my worldview is aligned with God's values, his view of the world, him, being the creator, me being the creation, then just make it. Like, stop trying to justify your art and just do it. I mean, every time one of these posts comes up, I just post like, hey, it doesn't matter. Just go make the art that God's convicted you to make, and let the market decide whether that's going to be viable for consumption, viable for, getting traction and impacting people.
I wish that I had made that argument as eloquently to my mom growing up as you just did. When I wanted to listen to like Disciple or, I mean, most of the time she was cool with some music, but she really would prefer that I listen to Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant,
Stephen Curtis Chapman.
Yeah, those were the true Christian artists.
Yeah.
Pillar, Disciple, Petra. That had some devil in it.
Yeah. Well, and that's, Jonathan Cooper talks about that his mom wouldn't let him listen to Petra.
Jonathan Cooper?
Yeah, from Skillet.
Oh, very formal.
Yeah, so he talks about that in particular, that his mom wouldn't let him listen to Petra. And finally, she took him to a Petra concert one night and was like, "Well, when they start praying to the devil, we're getting out of there." And then at the end of the show, they had an altar call, and she was like, "Okay, you're allowed to listen to the Gaithers and Petra." And so, but you talk so much about how that
sounds like an amazing mixture.
Well, and it really comes out in their music, right? The latest Skillet album really feels like a mix of the Gaithers and Petra.
I mean, that's where the name came from.
Yeah, for sure.
Skillet is a combination of many styles.
Yeah,
which now is pretty much just metal.
Yeah. But you did mention, you hit on one of our favorite things to talk about, which is worldviews. And, with Jonathan Cooper and your mom.
Did you say John Cooper?
No, his name's Jonathan. They came from a specific, Jonathan Cooper's mom, your mom, my mom came from a specific worldview that said that there were certain things that Christians weren't supposed to do. It was based and steeped in a certain amount of legalism. And one of the things that you brought up is basically that all truth is God's truth. And that however that truth gets communicated through art, there are things that we can take away from it where we're able now then to convey those things to people. It's a very Schaeffer-esque way of looking and,
here you
and
go,
thinking
bringing
about
Schaeffer
the world.
up again.
Always. So
and Piercy, say something about Piercy.
No, I'm gonna go straight to Gadawa.
Okay. Hey, Gadawa's awesome.
Yeah, Gadawa's great.
They're all awesome. I'm just messing with you.
We can't get Francis Schaeffer on the show though. He won't return our calls.
Yeah.
But
it's just crazy.
The guy's getting lazy.
We need to get David's witch to help us out with that.
Okay, we're out. So how do you, as a producer and director, right? So those things are often kind of veiled to people that aren't in the film community, right? If you're not familiar with working on set or you're not around people that are in that, you don't realize the influence that a producer and a director have in the overall vision of a movie, where those things come from, because really the writers and the actors is who we see communicate those things. How do you, as a producer and a director, help to guide and shape the worldview of a film into something that is representative of you and the message that you want to get across?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that it's like, just to even caveat before talking about like my approach, one of the reasons it's so confusing to people outside the film industry is because it's different. I mean, if you're on set with, like a Michael Bay, Michael Bay is the producer, but
producer of the new Omicron variant. I'm sorry, go back. Michael Bay.
Transformer movie, right?
Yes. He sounds just like a Transformer to me.
The war on Omicron.
Right. It sounds just like a Transformer movie.
Michael Bay as a producer is heavily involved and has a reputation for
explosions
and many other things that your moms would probably not be approving of in
pretty much
movies.
Bad movies overall.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And the director doesn't have as much influence in a generic Michael Bay film. But, then on the other hand, you've got, other directors who are like, they don't do producing at all. I mean, I don't know that Ron Howard does no producing, but like Ron Howard always works with, I'm
Brian
totally blanking on his name. What's that?
Brian Grazer.
Yeah, Ryan Grazer. And that relationship, is very symbiotic for them. Like they're used to working with, so they have division of roles. And, in an ideal scenario, kind of the producer is geared to provide the director with the resources to guide the vision of the film, or in the kind of default scenario. But that, shifts so often. And I think, like, my perspective when I come to directing, and there's, different theories on like who the author of a film is. There's like a French theory called the Auteur Theory, and they talk about who is the author, and it's this big, discussion and everything. And I'm just kind of the mindset that for me, I don't consider myself the author of the film. I consider myself the coordinator. And my responsibility is to coordinate through the best things that everybody is providing and bring those to light to reinforce the story. And, it's probably some of my theology just kind of bleeding over into my life, in that, like, I see leadership as a servant position. So when I'm coming to a film and approaching it as a producer and as a director, my thought is like, how do I serve what's going on here? And, this is in my mind, an offering to the Lord, and we want to do that. And we want to do that well. We want to do it to the best of our abilities, but I'm looking for something that goes beyond just what I can do. And, if I'm just stuck on my vision, it's not going to be the best film. And, when you hire cast, they bring things to characters that sometimes I missed, like it's, they bring different insight, and they think through them. And, if you have really good quality actors, they're like, we had on set with About Hope, everybody on set. We just were so blessed by our cast. But Justin Ray, who plays the lead in the film, he had props from the script that he needed. Like, we never had to ask him, like baby pictures and, things to choose from. And, just was so ready to go right out of the box. And, it was the best casting decision I've ever made, with Justin, and very closely followed with, everybody else on that cast. And, it's one of those things where I think, it's going to be different on every set, but for me, that's just the way I know how to operate. Is I'm the leader here, and leaders serve their team. And if you do that well, and you have your team's respect, then you're going to do something greater as a team than any one of you could have done as an individual.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks that talk about the way that the star handles themselves on a set really sets the tone for how everybody else is going to treat, the rest of the crew, right outside of the director.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that enough is made of the attitude of the director in handling those people and making sure, especially, that you're coming from a serving perspective, which is a very Christ-like attitude to have, but also it, at the very beginning, sets a tone where conflict resolution and like the diffusing of disagreements are put in kind of this area that allows people to be more creative with what they're wanting to do, because you want to do things that serve them, they want to do things that serve the story, and on it goes. So I'm curious with the actors and things that you work with. You mentioned that Justin was one of the best, if not the best, casting decision that you ever made. When you look at shooting a feature film versus several of the shorts that you've done, and if you were to just look at your IMDb,
there's a bunch.
IMDb page, you've done a litany of really wonderful shorts. And so I'm curious, how does that change in casting and in the leadership when you're going to be with somebody for months versus days?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the short films we made in competitions, we made in, just small short films that we'd want to make, or, just different kind of things where it was really like you're growing in a community. And so a lot of those short films, I mean, we have the same pool of actors, kind of pulling a lot, and we're building stories around the resources that we have. And, really, I mean, the feature film is similar to that in that, like I think of the parable of the steward, right? You've got some, given 2 talents and 4 talents, or a parable of the talents. Sorry. 2 talents, 4 talents, 10 talents. I don't remember the specific numbers, but
12 talents.
And what 1, 2, and 5.
Oh,
yeah. 1, 2, and 5.
That's what I was going to guess.
And then they invest them differently. And when I look at Christian artists, and generally have big dreams. They want to do something. They want to, like especially in film, it's like, well, they want to direct. They want to have the reins. They want to bring their vision to life and whatnot. And I think something that everybody has to learn is, look, you're starting with 1 talent. And if you choose to bury your talent because you don't get to make the movie you want to make, you're never going to get more talents to be able to do that larger project. And we see that in the parable, right? Like, I buried this one because my master was a hard master, and I was, afraid of him. And, the 2 talents, the 5 talents, they invested it, and then they were given more. So then now they can continue. With the short films, we're like, okay, what do we have? Let's make something we can make and learn by doing it. So, I mean, the short films, some of them are fun. Some of them are real, rough around the edges. Every time we went in to make a short film, it was for a purpose, for learning. We'd say, okay, we want to work on some special effects in this. We want to work on makeup. We made a funny little short film called True Love Never Dies. And it was about a guy who makes a deal with the devil to bring his wife back to life after she's tragically killed by a speeding car as she's running across the street. So she's running across the street in the first shot and gets hit by this car. And we wanted to try that special effect. We wanted to do this special effect and work on compositing and things like that. So that was like, okay, checkbox number 1. But then we wanted to really try makeup and do some like fun makeup stuff in this particular, outing, like, okay, we have a weekend. We're going to make a movie. What are we going to do? We're going to, we want to do this, this, and this. Let's put together a story. And then we put it together. So he makes this deal with the devil that the devil will bring his wife back to life, but she's a zombie. So she's alive, but she's
that devil.
Yeah, So
he always gets you with those little.
You can never trust a deal with the devil.
You got to read the contract carefully.
That's what you get for making a wish on a monkey paw.
So we're just trying things, and we use the people that are there. In a feature film, obviously, to make a feature film, you have more resources. So, we're investing funds into that so we can cast the net out a little further. And as you have more resources, then you're responsible for more. And, you have the skill sets, but you can also afford to not just use the resources that you have right in front of you, but also acquire resources because of the additional funds that are there. So you approach it differently. With About Hope, we literally had, I think, 700 or 800 submissions through Backstage West is where we posted our audition call, and we were super blessed by the folks that we ended up on.
Well, great. Have you? So you loved with About Hope, specifically with the casting choice of Justin Ray.
Yeah.
Have you thought of doing a Quentin Tarantino? I'm trying to think. A Tim Burton, where you reuse the same actors and just going with him into your next film? If so, what would that next film be?
Yeah, so actually we are developing a next film. It's called Christmas in Kalispell, and we have written the lead role for Justin.
I knew it.
So I was trying to figure out how to say Kalispell earlier whenever we were looking at some of the projects that you guys have in development. I'm curious with, somebody like Justin Ray, who plays Thomas in the movie About Hope.
Yeah.
As he brings all these prompts and everything to the table, by the end of the movie, I guess really by the end of shooting, he is more into the character, in tune with who the character is and all of that, than he was on day one of shooting. How difficult is that
How dare you assume what he knows?
Producer and director to not want to go back and do reshoots over some of those things now that your actors, and maybe not Justin in particular, but whether whoever the actors are that are involved
Justin
in this.
is a consummate professional, Lucas.
So,
he knows the role cold on day one.
Like Tiffany Vollmer.
So there's a couple of things at play, right? So when an actor is approaching, you want to do some rehearsals. So we did 2 weeks of rehearsals before we shot. And so we walked through a lot of that, walked through a lot of the characters. And a big part of that is not so much to allow the individual actor to get to know their character better, but really to allow the chemistry between actors,
everyone else,
to soften and kind of come together. Because like there's a scene that I love in About Hope with Thomas and Desiree where they're sitting poolside, and we went through that dialogue, and we kind of talked about it, and we went through and we talked about kind of where the character motivations are and what's going on in the inner dialogue through those scenes. And just hearing the two of them kind of discuss, they're bringing their character perspective, and then they're talking about the other one, and they can find a nuance to even heighten what's going on. So you get a pretty good look at that during rehearsals, and you can kind of set the tone. But you also choose which scenes you're filming with that in mind, right? Like you think, okay, like when are they going to be fresh? When, what are the emotionally exhausting scenes? I mean, it's Christine who plays the lead female in the film. She had these emotional scenes that she would get to, and as an actress, I mean, it takes energy and effort to get there, and you want to make sure that you're timing the takes as you're going through. So one of the things in filming, like you're going to do your long shots, your mid shots, and then your close-ups. And as you do that, you want to make sure that you're saving the burst of emotion for the close-ups. And the long shots, it's not as, you're further away. So, I mean, like whether she has live tears or she's, totally in the moment in this one. And I mean, there's so many variables that come with it.
So if we were to put this into perspective, into real life, if she was in line at Chick-fil-A ordering, you would do that first with a long shot, and then eventually when they mess up her order and she cries, you'd want that to be a close-up. This is a Christian film. We want to include Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A does not mess up orders.
This is true. They don't.
That is right next to
this is an absurd example.
First off, that's not true.
There's
That's not true, because they consistently do not put barbecue sauce in with my wife's nuggets.
Yeah, but they ask in the beginning.
They do. They ask, what kind of sauce would you like? She says barbecue.
I also like barbecue sauce.
And then
with
we
my
look in the
nugs.
bag and it's empty the last two times, and Chick-fil-A is on notice in our community. So
I'm pretty sure there's a verse somewhere in the Bible that says that, like, thou shalt not question Chick-fil-A. I think it's in the book of Deceptions.
Yeah, Deceptions or Hesitations, one of the two.
Or Hesitations, one of them. Yeah. So.
And when disappointed, thou shalt forgive Chick-fil-A.
And it shall be their pleasure.
Or I shall smite it.
Yeah. So we mentioned Ron Howard and Brian Grazer earlier. Brian Grazer's got two great books out, A Curious Mind and Face to Face, where he just talks about curiosity. And in there, he talks a lot about his role as a producer to bring a story to the directors and to the actors and really to the people who are financing the story.
Yeah.
To convince them that this story is worth making. It sounds like with About Hope, that was kind of your role as well, because the story it's about your life experiences, and yet you let somebody else write the movie, right?
Yep.
And then there are other people who are really acting in the roles that you would have been like. What is it like to not just pitch the story and to get it funded, but then to release other people to write that story, which is so personal to you?
Well, I think I would say first, as a storyteller, you use your own pieces to, kind of build a skeleton, but then you put flesh on it afterwards. So, by the time I even got to the point where I was pitching it to people, there was a certain amount of, separation from like personal experience. Obviously the driving emotion was very genuine in, relatability at that stage of my life. The writing was easy because Cindy is great, and we've written 2 scripts. We're finishing our 3rd together. I just found very early on that I'm not a writer. So, I have to find people with different strengths to partner with, or I'm never going to make anything. And, there's, we've had experience with other people where, they'll have a script, or they've got an idea, or they've got something, and we say, oh, we like that. And, let's look at doing it, but they don't want to give any control over. And, the truth is there's a lot of great ideas out there that will never be made because they won't ever have the opportunity. So if you have the opportunity to partner with somebody and they're saying, hey, let's do this, work to trust them, build a relationship that you can trust them. Don't just feel like everybody's out to get you and they're going to betray your story, because now you're involved in that story too much. And that's a danger, right? If I sit down and I enjoy the movie About Hope, that doesn't do anything for my investors. And as a Christian, I need to be concerned with the people who invested in this film, the people who have put their blood, sweat, and tears into this film. And it's not just about me and my story and the thing that I want to get out of it. I have to separate from that, because if I don't, it's just pride. And, it's the artist. We all, not just the artist. Pride is just the root, right? So many things come out of it. And this is just an area that the artist needs to be cautious with, is look, who are you creating your art for? Because there's only 3 people you can create your art for. You can create your art for you can create your art for an audience, or you can create your art for God. And ideally it's going to be some mixture of those things, right? I'm going to create my art for me because it's an act of worship. I'm going to create my art for the audience because I want them to understand it. And I'm going to create my art for God because it's an offering to him. And if we can align our artistic talents, along that, I think, man, the world would have a colorful tapestry of the goodness of God and the hope that he offers through Christ in so many different mediums that are absent of that message right now. Because it's not that we don't have enough money. It's not that we're not talented enough. It's that I really believe it's that we're just too prideful, and we're trying to do things that God has not equipped us for. And we're trying to jump the hoops, we're not putting in the hard work, or we're not humble enough to receive correction. We're too caught up in our own pride of thinking this is the way it's got to be done. This is the way I want to see it. This is what it has to be.
I I think that's a really interesting answer to that question, because the idea of being in any kind of performance medium, it's one that oftentimes whenever you tell people, so a little bit of history on Danley and I, we met playing in a band together.
Don't bring my history up.
Yeah, we are. We met playing in a band together, and there were even moments in our roles where there were claims allegedly, claims of narcissism and things like that, just in the idea that we were doing something other than purely worship music. Mm-hmm. Because we were doing something other than just leading God's people in worship, because there were real life experiences, things that we went through that dealt with heartache and with just different pieces of the human condition. And every one of those songs that we wrote or things that we performed were still laments of where we were that did kind of fall into those three categories. And so I think that it's interesting to see this perspective of doing something that does have a certain amount of a spotlight and attention that's shown on you in doing it, and yet still doing it for God, still doing it in order to share a message with the audience, and then also as an act of service and using your talent in a way that God has gifted you as an act of worship too. And that kind of goes back to some of the things we were talking about with worldview, and the idea that if we're doing those three things well, if those, kind of three circles are in balance together, then what we're able to do is to create art that is transcendent, like what we see with, the stuff that the early church did, which is really some of the most beautiful and amazing art that's out there, not just within the visual mediums, but also musically. There's a reason that we sing hymns that are 500 years old, is because they still speak to us and are still really beautiful.
That gets to I'm sitting here thinking about it, because we revere the Word of God, right? I mean, we talk about it as inspired, infallible, like all these things where we look at this, it's Holy Spirit inspired, it's Holy Spirit, and it's important because as Christians we look to the authority of that, and I think one of the things that especially in the Reformed camp, which I'm very squarely in, I think that sometimes our academic and head approach to theology can get in the way of allowing the Spirit to still inspire, to do things. I mean, if we look at Amazing Grace, right? We've been singing this song for, over 100 years, 150 years, something, I don't remember exactly, 1800s. I mean, this is something that has stood the test of time and came out of, horrendous things. And, I don't think anybody would have the problem of saying that was a Spirit inspired song, a Spirit inspired hymn, right? Yeah. But yet we have problems with something right now saying okay, well, this was Holy Spirit inspired, because we don't want it to get in the way of authority of the Word of God, or these different kind of things. And we have to think about those things in two different categories. And I bring that up just because I'm thinking about, you guys writing songs about your heartache or your things. These are part of the human condition. And, heartache is heartache, and it's there for a purpose to draw us closer to the Lord, to draw us closer to something. There's a really good scene in About Hope, which I won't quote, about, what we're trying to do in relationships and things like that. Just in case anybody hasn't seen it, they go watch it, then they can see it there. But this concept of we can't fill the holes with anything but God, but at the same time the Holy Spirit can inspire and draw things out to expose the holes, right? I think I love Billy Joel. He's one of my favorite artists of all time, and I think he has just amazing stories that he tells in his songs.
What's your favorite Billy Joel song?
Oh, that's that's a super hard question.
It is.
I really like the Lullaby song off of River of Dreams. That's the first one that comes to mind, but it's because I have a 5 and an 8-year-old, so I'm just outside of that kind of like,
using it
kid thing. But I mean, Innocent Man was the first album that I heard. And I mean, everything on that album is, just a standard, I mean, it's just crazy. And Stormfront's a great album. I mean, I love, I actually just recently, but who is it? Adele just started, she just released
30. I think it's 30, right? Name of the album?
Make You Feel My Love, or I can't remember the specific, but it's that song. It's been done over and over and over again. And I always thought that Billy Joel wrote that song. But it was actually, Bob Dylan, but Billy Joel released it before Bob Dylan did. And then, and about a half a dozen or dozen artists have sung it. But I mean, it's a great song, and he does a great job with it. But just the lyrics that he brings out. I mean, there's so much of the human condition that he exposes through his music. And it's, I don't agree with his values. I mean, he sings a lot about young love and lust and sexual encounters that are not biblically approved or encouraged, and all kinds of things. But and this is the thing, is that is part of the human condition still.
Yeah.
Even as a Christian man, I mean, lust is something that we deal with. So to pretend it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't help anything. So that was a little bit of a ramble there at the end. Billy Joel distracted me.
Well, this has been another edition of the Soft Rock Podcast with. No, that's all. That's really great insight. I do, though, want to make a hard shift in gears because we've been talking a lot about hope. We've been talking about worldview stuff, which I could talk about for a really long time.
You want to talk about Stevie D?
But this is not. What the heck is a Stevie D? Like there's way more to.
And does it come in a tincture?
Yeah, there's way more to what's going on at Creator Studios.
So Creator Films.
Yeah, Creator Films. Yeah, than just about hope. Talk to us about some of the projects that you've got going on right now that you're really excited about.
Yeah, so we're really excited about the Adventures of Stevie D, and Stevie D is just a fun name to say that we made up.
It is.
That happens to sound like a marijuana product now. But
it does, yeah.
It does not help your inflammation, but it is a wonderful experience.
You want to get rid of a headache? Turn on an episode of Stevie D.
Yeah.
But the Adventures of Stevie D is kind of like it's interesting because we came up with the concept like 10 years ago with a friend of mine, Patrick Levis.
So this is before marijuana was invented, so you guys can actually claim this.
Yeah, didn't even exist back then.
Reagan didn't even know what it was.
But we originally wrote it as a live action thing, and
say no to Stevie D. I'm sorry.
It was just kind of a fun thing about basically like this philanthropist guy who flies around the world learning more about creation so that he can better understand its creator.
That's exactly what I want to do.
It's pretty awesome. So
you and your buddy were sitting around playing Uncharted and not partaking, and that's how you came up with this. That's what we're supposed
Uncharted
to believe.
Did not exist 10 years ago.
What's that lady?
Who does Tomb Raider?
Tomb Raider, yes, that's it.
Tomb Raider, yes, that would definitely exist.
Lara Croft, there you go. Lara Croft.
Lara Croft, there you go. Yep. But with like we had all of that ready to go, and just the way the Lord works, we put it on the shelf, and we finished About Hope, and we talked to the investors, and we said, what are we going to do next? And one of the things that I had been watching for a long time was this new movement of equity crowdfunding. And with equity crowdfunding, it allows the individual to be an angel investor and to do venture capital, investment stuff. You got all these websites that are popping up now. And, we were watching these different companies kind of pop up, and I thought, man, this would be a great way to do a Christian film studio, because it's not just about, the cool part about like, hey, we get to make movies and see an inside view of that and be part of it. But it's also like, we want to get our faith out, like there's a dual kind of buy-in that people would have. And we got the investors together. We rolled About Hope into this new company. We did a launch of it and everything. And then COVID hit, and we're thinking like, well, what project are we going to do next? Because, filming requirements and everything have just gotten crazy. And we revisited this concept, and we said, well, what if we did this as an animation? And the Lord just happened to bring about some really talented illustrators. And then, we got partnered up with Brainy Pixel.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did he have anything to do with it?
No. So I actually, I came across Brandon online in the Christian filmmakers group that we were in. And, we were looking at different animators, and we talked to a few, and I saw some of the stuff that they'd put up. And I just thought, well, I should give him a call.
Yeah.
And then we just hit it off.
Cubekins is pretty solid.
Yeah, totally solid guys. Him and Michael are both, we have the same heart. Point. Like that's the biggest thing, because like you go back to that, a couple of days versus a couple of weeks on a film set and casting people. I mean, these are very difficult things to bring about. They're emotionally draining. They're financially draining, they're time consuming, and you have to do it to such a level to be competitive that it can be exhausting. And to go through that experience with people that bug you would be terrible.
Just ask Doug TenNapel about his time on VeggieTales with Phil Vischer.
Well, I will. That sounds like a good conversation. I'd like to hear that one.
It was, You can roll back to the Rev and Rep in December where they talk about that exactly. As that they revamped all of the animation. Actually, Ethan Nicole from the Babylon Be There creative director was part of that team also. That they revamped the way that they did VeggieTales, and not only did they get a ton of negative feedback from the community that grew up loving it, where Doug's point was, if you take 1998 VeggieTales animation and try to market it today, that people are just going to destroy it. So they updated the animation, went back to basic animation concepts, really made the characters very lively, and then as soon as Phil and Mike Naraki came in to do the voices, Mike was great, and Phil immediately put out a tweet that was like, I know Bob the Tomato and this isn't Bob the Tomato. And within I guess about 30 minutes of him leaving the building and putting out that tweet, there started this 4-year-long friction relationship between the creator of VeggieTales and the animator, who was I say the animator, Doug was the showrunner that was hired by DreamWorks, right? And neither one of them talks about that relationship with any kind of favorability. They both have a great amount of admiration for the other's skill and talent, but never would choose to work together again. And it made everything really difficult for everybody else across the board. So, exactly what you're talking about, even within the Christian realm, that's one of the big dangers, I think, that comes with collaboration. So how do you avoid that?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I've never met Phil Vischer, so I only know of him what I see online and whatnot. But I mean, Phil's a guy that I think has great talent. Has done great things, and I would never want to work with. Just because I just have such disagreement with him on certain theological points and cultural points and things like that. I'm like, no, that would cause friction on set. Yeah. So it wouldn't make sense for me to bring a ticking time bomb into, what happens if there's a cultural moment that somebody feels so strongly about that they have to be vocal about, and now it creates conflict. So I mean, I think finding people that you are as aligned with as possible in the executive team is extremely important. And then, as you go down from there, I mean, like we had people on set that weren't believers. We had people on set that, we had Catholics on set and much more like, like Pentecostal and more Reformed and, everything in between. And, we just were very, one, like you said, it starts with the leadership, right? I mean, we have to set a tone that says, look, these are all things that are accepted, but the leadership has to have that unity so that they know, hey, we're protecting the integrity of this project, the purpose of it and whatnot. So, I mean, like
two horses pulling in two different directions is not going to work for moving a project along.
Yeah. And
that's why we don't have more YouTube followers. Because we disagree on everything. Just two horses pulling in different directions.
We have our new logo.
On the same page. It's all going to work out.
Get something with two horses.
Just pulling in opposite directions, yeah.
Thank you
or
for the
if
setup of that
two
joke.
Horses are pulling towards one another, that would be difficult too.
Yeah. So. With knights on it lancing each other.
Then you have a joust.
Yeah.
That hurt my burn.
Yeah, Danley burned himself this weekend.
Just a little side note, but I have a pretty good burn on my hand and up my arm.
Turns out he's allergic to fire.
For your burn to heal, Danley.
This is a good opportunity
for you to throw some aloe on there.
There you go.
So we're excited that you're working with Brandon on some of these projects because we love what the guys over at Brainy Pixel are doing. The cube can step while very basic in the animation itself, which he said on our interview with him that's part of the reason that they did it. They wanted to show some proof of concept
keep
stuff.
the cost down.
Yeah, but the writing, the songwriting, the dialogue, it's all a lot of fun. It's really well done. What has that been like working with those guys on a project that is completely different? What you're talking about with Stevie D is totally different, and with some of the other animation projects that you guys have in the works, it's a little bit more complicated than draw me a rectangular prism with some eyeballs and make it happen.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the different styles of animation are, like, are we going to do 2D? Are we going to do 3D? And right now, we are finishing up the show intro basically, and it's just kind of concept for the show itself. And one of the questions that we have is, is this like you get to a certain point of development and then you reassess, and those are questions you have. It's like, okay, is this the style we want to land on? Do we need to make any adjustments? Do we go this way to go that way? But, one of the things that you consider is like, okay, well, who is the target market, right? Is who are we making this for? This show is geared towards 3 to 7 year olds. So, 3 to 7 year olds, what's out there? A lot of 3 to 7 year old content, you got like, kind of the Disney 3D toon type staple, like Sophia the First and Doc McStuffins and, I'm trying to remember the Elena and all the different
back like 10 years, I might know
7-year or 8-year-old daughter, right?
Yeah.
But then you look at outside of that, you got shows like Wild Kratts and like even old school shows like Magic School Bus and different things that are more 2D animation. And so with this, you look at the cost to do those different styles, and you look at, okay, what's the business model? How do we get this out? And, who are the people that we're gonna approach? Because, we, like I said, like we're an equity crowdfunded company. So, we talk about our priorities, like our priority number one is to get the gospel out through parable, through stories, right? And then priority number two is we have to create content. And priority number three is we need to show a profit, because if we don't show a profit, then we can't fulfill priority number one or number two if priority three isn't met. And, one of the things that I think is I don't know, I guess frustrating to me. I don't know how charismatic you guys are. But
I've made some sales in my life.
I have a lot of charisma. But I know your question is more.
He burned himself with charisma.
Church of Christ, Baptist. Where on the scale?
Well, because
we're fun.
because I don't want to, I don't want to cause any concern of my salvation or anything like that.
No,
but
I'll put it this way: we let Danley play electric guitar, but we don't let him have a tambourine. That's where we are on the charismatic.
I do have a wireless guitar also, and I can run around in the studio or in the sanctuary.
You could, but we don't let you. But you could do it.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're kind of like Jesus in question answering. John sends his disciples. Says, Jesus, are you the one, or should we wait for another? And Jesus is like, well, this stuff's going on. It's like, okay.
In that one regard, I'm like Jesus. I'm trying also in other ways, but I have fallen short.
Yeah, but we can give you a vague answer, just like Jesus did to John's disciples.
I also like fish and bread.
Well, let me just
spend time in barns
and boats.
There's so many similarities.
Yeah, it's great.
I had this dream a couple of weeks back. And,
so you're very charismatic.
It's very charismatic.
Wow.
It's not
Heresy
it's
alert.
not authoritative. I'm not writing new scripture, but it was a dream, and I thought it was interesting. So you can assign to it what your theology allows you to assign to it.
I also had a dream. I'll tell mine after you tell yours.
Okay. So I had this dream that my wife and I were in a church service, and it was this massive stadium. And we were sitting there, worshiping, and there's worship screens all over the stadium. And there's my brother-in-law actually came in and was like saying hi to my wife, and he like reached down and gave her a hug. And then he had this remote in his hand, and the remote flipped the worship screens off. It was like hit the input. And I'm, a media kind of service operations pastor for quite a while, and I know how to fix things. So I took the remote and tried fix it. And as the screen came back on, then it went back off, and then it came back on, and so then they fixed it down front, and then there was this close up of the worship team, and there was a bearded man who was dressed as a woman leading worship, but like up on the screen. We're gonna get really controversial now.
Yeah, he's been watching our live streams.
Bearded man dressed as a woman named Danley playing bass.
So I stood up and I was like, you gotta get this off screen. Like, what is going on? I'm just like, what is going on? And the whole church was silent. And it was like nobody noticed it, and nobody, gave it any regard. And I went down afterward and, to try to find the pastor. And there was kind of a, like a younger kind of assistant guy who came out, and as he passed me and sees, a few other people, kind of standing there, but he's passed me, he's like, oh, well, this ought to be good. And then I just see him interacting with these other people, and just has no real listening at all. And I just in the dream I thought, well, I'm not going to cast pearls before swine. I'm just leaving. Like, clearly they don't care. Like this, there's nothing to do here when the leadership doesn't care. And it's I feel like so much of the church has written off media, like written off things, and there's a lot of the church that wants to complain about the content being made, but they don't want to support artists who are trying to make it. Like, they don't want to invest in things that could be a difference. They don't want to be involved. They just have a consumer mindset. And I had this dream, like I say, a few weeks back, and we happened to be, like I said, getting into children's content. And one of the things that really stirred me to get into children's content was watching the children's content being made right now. And you have a lot of children's content that is clearly has an agenda behind it. Mm-hmm. Sexual politics, identity politics, like all of these things kind of going on. And, we kind of ran with that and put it out. And we've just gotten so much pushback. Just, a lot of hate towards us because of our stances on that. And the funny thing is that, like, we're not telling Hollywood that they can't do what they want. I mean, as a very conservative, political person, like, it's a free market. I mean, they have every right to produce the content that they want to, as do we, and then the market decides, but it's just interesting to me as we talk about these things, as we talk about the church and the role in this, and I don't even remember right now what got me into the dream, but it's one of the things where I just feel like I really want to tell the church, like, every entertainment purchase you make is an investment into a voice. Every purchase you make is an investment into something. And when we take our faith out of economics, when we take our faith out of politics, when we take our faith out of entertainment, when we take our faith out of education, now there's no salt and light in it. Mm-hmm. And now you've just given that over to a depraved mind, right? And so that's kind of what Creator Films is all about. To kind of get back to that, is we want to gather a community of people who are investing in this, and we have a responsibility to them to do everything we can to see a return on that investment so we can continue down the mission.
Yeah, it does remind me a little bit of the lyrics from Steve Martin's song that he sings about his grandma. And one of the lines, this song's absolutely ridiculous, but one of the lines in it rings true every time, and it's criticize things you don't know about. And like immediately, as soon as I hear that, I'm like, gosh, that is how I feel about so many things in general, because and it is part of,
I love it when you quote Steve Martin.
Thank you. It is. I think it is just part of our human nature that we have opinions about the way things should happen and the way that we want them to happen, even though we know nothing about the industry or how something will or won't.
And if there's no action behind it, kind of like David's talked about, support the arts, specifically if you're passionate about,
right?
Having offsetting, the very political lean of the media that we have out there. Support the other side. Support the art that is out there.
Yeah. And that's what Creator Films allows you to do. Yeah. And currently, you said you guys are working a stock deal. Talk to us a little bit about that and how we can get involved in Creator Films.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's an equity crowdfunded company. So what that means is that you're buying shares of stock in the company. And, so you own shares of the company. It's it's a high risk, high reward investment. We are a startup. This is super competitive, space. But we talk about like a kingdom ROI or a complete ROI, where you've got, of course, like we're trying for a financial return on investment, but there's also like an experiential return on investment, right? I mean, you get to be part of the process. One of the cool things about our investors is so we just launched a web comic called The Creator and Me. And, as we've been developing these characters and developing these storylines, like we send them to our investors and we say, hey, this is our concept art. What do you guys like? What do you not? So we have a market testing component to our company because people are invested in doing this with us. And, it's just like the body of Christ. I mean, not everyone is the pastor teaching on Sunday morning. Not everyone is the usher putting people down into place people in seats. Not everyone is serving in children's ministry or, visiting the orphans and the widows or, any of these other things that are going on. But in this company, I mean, like, man, you get to be part of the market testing. You get to be part of the development. You get to be, see these things kind of going on. But then we also have the kingdom ROI. Even if these things crash and burn and don't make profit, they're still going out into the public square as salt and light.
Yeah, it's reaching eyeballs.
Yeah. So, we feel like it's a
feel
cool
way to say it.
Obviously I've invested a ton of time, money, and talent into this and many other things, but actually I don't want to make side comment about my wife, because it's not to her. Like, she's been so supportive of it, and I'm like super blessed because
You need to be nice to your wife.
Here we go.
I'm going to be. She's a good one.
Yep.
They all are. We are
Yes.
all unworthy.
Yes. Amen.
Indeed, especially any of us that have made any sort of delve into a creative field. We are certainly not worthy of the wives that God has given us, as they sit idly by and listen to us throw ideas like so much spaghetti against the wall to see if something sticks.
Yes.
Hey, what do you think about that? Boil it a little longer. I think something may have, you may have there. Yep.
So a very important point before I get distracted my wives is, if somebody wanted to invest, wefunder.com/Creator Films is the direct page for the investment portfolio or the investment opportunity. That'll run through December. And then if you want to get on our email list or things like that to be able to, because even, we do investment rounds periodically, generally every 6 to 12 months. And, that's kind of our business plan for the next, 3 to 5 years as we build up a library of content. But if you want to kind of just see what's going on and still be part of the pool of people that can, look at the characters that we're developing, hear the stories, hear the songs, get updates and all that. We do investor update, kind of informational things, and get on our email list, and we'll send that stuff out to you as well. And that you just go to creatorfilms.com, and there's a, contact us and sign up through there.
Rock and roll. Well, Dave, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today, but we wrap up all of our interviews with a segment called Controlled Rowdiness. Now, these answers are as rapid fire or as long-winded as you would like them to be. There are no right answers to any of these questions, but there are several wrong answers. And as we kick things off, Danley, if you'll get us going.
All right, David.
Okay.
Do aliens exist?
Yes, but they're probably demons.
Okay, so a group of demons invade. And they're going to destroy the earth in 60 seconds unless you tell them a story so awesome that they decide to spare us. What is it?
It can't be the gospel.
I feel like there's a song about this.
Well, you better hurry up.
I think it's a Jack Black song, actually.
Yeah.
It's a song about the song or something. I don't remember what. It's some ridiculous thing.
Well, there is tribute.
Yeah, there is.
But there's also another one, Master Exploder.
Your 60 seconds starts now.
Okay. Once upon a time, there was a man who was incomplete. His name was Tom Cruise. Everybody knows Tom Cruise.
And he's found Scientology?
I can't tell stories on the... I just can't do it.
Found Scientology.
On the spur of the moment.
No, you made the demon aliens laugh.
Yeah.
Yes,
So, well done.
that was enough. I mean,
Well done.
Tom Cruise was in War of the Worlds, the remake.
This is true.
Yeah.
And they get defeated by water, right? Those aliens?
I think
Yeah.
that's signs.
Yeah,
Yep, you're right.
There
that
we
would
go.
have been a good
Signs.
route to go.
Yeah.
It's just,
But hey, nice mention of Tenacious D, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
That's a great mention of Tenacious D. We recommend all of you parents go out and buy your kids a Tenacious. We do not
right after,
at all.
right after
Yeah.
they listen to Petra and
After you've already let the demon into your house by listening to Petra.
No, let Tenacious D in first and then play Petra to fight them out.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so you mentioned earlier that Stevie D is a mixture of Doctor Who, Indiana Jones, and the Crocodile Hunter. And is that because you already had a character in the works that was a mixture of Sherlock Holmes, Luke Skywalker, and the dad from Bluey?
no, but that just happened by accident.
Okay, cool. Go ahead, Danley.
Okay,
All those are great characters, though.
Yeah,
Especially the dad from Bluey.
Oh, he's
they're
the best
fantastic.
cartoon dad ever.
Pretty much, yes.
I'm gonna come back to that one. I'm not sure if that's true, but I don't have a better one off the top of my head.
Ask your question.
In your in your movie About Hope, you actually had a cameo. If this is to be to be proven true, which is a dog walker. Is this true or false?
True.
So, how in depth was your character study of dog walker?
I literally spent years preparing for that role. I bought the dog as a puppy, trained the dog, fed the dog, and then walked the dog for the movie.
Wow.
Well, it sounds like you were a method actor.
Very
It was
method.
very method.
Did you show up
I
on-
was
did you show up
so
on
method
set?
that I still have the dog.
Wow.
Yeah.
You showed up on set. Don't talk to me.
My
Still have that
goodness.
dog. That's great. What kind of dog? What kind of
He's
dogs
a
do you have?
Lab mix. So he's a Labrador, a half lab, half pit.
And just one dog that you have?
No, we actually have another dog.
Man, impressed.
that was
I am
a
impressed.
full-
Daniel Day-Lewis,
Yeah.
Jared Leto, David Dietrich, method actors.
Yeah.
There's a great story about method actors. It's with Marathon Man, I think it was.
Okay.
And it's Dustin Hoffman and I think it's Laurence Olivier. I'm trying to remember who it was. And Dustin Hoffman would run to rehearsal like however long every day, to come in and just drip in sweat and everything like that. And Laurence Olivier passed him on the stairs or something. And, you go by and he said, you should try acting sometime.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't actually have to be Batman all the time.
All right. So, as our resident expert of Dietrich,
Yes.
who had the better haircut, Dietrich Bader or Dietrich Bonhoeffer?
Well, I mean, Dietrich Bonhoeffer kind of had hair more like me there towards the end. So I don't know if that even qualifies for a haircut. By modern standards, I would say probably Dietrich Bader.
That's the correct answer.
Yeah. Yep.
My
Well
heart
done.
wants to say Dietrich Bonhoeffer just because I love Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Look, facts don't care about your feelings, okay?
It's true.
Yeah. It's Dietrich.
That's why I
Dietrich
answered
Bader.
factually instead of
Yeah.
Right.
And
emotional.
you definitely don't want a roundhouse kick to the face while Dietrich Bader's wearing these bad boys. So,
What's the worst burn you've ever gotten?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure it was from my wife, though.
No, man, like actual burn.
yeah, Danley got actually.
I have an
like
actual burn.
burn. Oh, actually, I got like second or third degree burns because when I was, I think, just out of high school, feeling the freedom of college, went to the beach with some friends and got a burn,
Ugh, this is hurting.
and then thought, I'll go tomorrow too, and came home with, like terribly, blistering, burning, terrible burns.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
So, as a pastor, I often tell stories from the pulpit that get me in trouble whenever I go home.
Yes.
So, I want to know, as a director, you said the story of About Hope was about your real life search for love. How does your wife feel about hope?
so I mean, it's not. There's nothing in the story outside of the
It's not a
search
girl named Hope.
It is in the
really,
movie.
real life. I actually think the story of my wife and I meeting is a great romantic comedy, but too long to tell in the bullet point segment. But she hates it when I tell that story. So I would say
What is
she
it?
likes hope more than the story, more than me telling our story.
All right, well, there you go. David Dietrich, ladies and gentlemen, he is one of the founders of Creator Films, also the producer and director of About Hope. Just for your information, a movie that has a higher star review on Amazon than Wonder Woman 1984. So congratulations for that. Tell our audience
I have
where it
arrived.
is. Tell our audience where it is that they can find you and support your work, man.
Creatorfilms.com is the best place. And then, of course, right now we have the investment round open on wefunder.com/creatorfilms.
All right, David Dietrich, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be here with you guys.
I'm sure it was.
It was. I wouldn't lie.
I just wanted to end on that note. We typically cut right there. Yeah. In fact, I'm waiting for you to say, and now we're going to cut it right there.
But so here is probably where we'll
Here we're going to cut it.
Here's this.
Yeah.
Not now.
Not then. We cut it then.
Oh, we cut it then. Okay.
Yeah, then and not now.
Can you handle this? I got to pee really bad.
Yeah, go for it.
Hey, I'll be right back.
So,
I think that now is where you should.
yeah, now. David freaking Dietrich.
David Dietrich.
So David was introduced to us through Brandon Hollingsworth, and we didn't know a ton about him at first, but as we got to dive into some of his stuff, to look at what they're doing with Creator Films over the last couple of weeks as we've been researching for this interview, he's become a really fascinating character to me in what he's doing. I loved.
He's going to do a lot of cool stuff that we kind of want to do someday.
Kind of want to do nothing. Would love to be able to do. You know, the movie About Hope was not just a phenomenal film, but it also had limited release in theaters, which is really cool for it to be able to do on what by Hollywood standards is a shoestring budget and a tough season. It ended up being top 20 for 8 weeks, right? I think
it's 5.
Okay, it was 5 weeks. It had an 8-week run, and so it was in the theater for 2 months, and then 5 of those weeks it was in the top 20, which is a really incredible accomplishment, a feat for any movie to be able to do, especially when you look at the amount specifically of like art house films and things like that get released. You're not just up against, thinking of like the big movies that are released every week that come out. You're not just up against the Marvel movies and all that, but then you have that second tier of what are the foreign films that are being released into
Sundance film.
Yeah, you got the Sundance films, you got the independent films, the
international
the stuff
films.
the international films that find their way into, American theaters because they want that opportunity to be up for an Academy Award. Against all of those, still ended up in the top 20. That's a really impressive feat, especially for a small budget movie from a studio that right now is still
in a fledgling studio.
Yeah, they're relatively unknown and are working to make themselves, I guess, a force to be reckoned with. And a lot of our off-air conversation was about some of the new upcoming projects that they have, especially in the comic realms and some of the other things that they're doing. There's so much that we're not allowed to say that's so fascinating. But
I hope
to say they've got some incredible projects coming up that are, if you want to look and invest in them, they've got some stuff that will blow your mind here in the next couple of months that they're looking to release.
Well, I hope that we did Brandon proud from Brainy Pixel, because he apparently warned David a little bit about what being on our show
our
is
shenanigans.
Like.
Yeah.
And I kind of leaned into it a little bit more because he started off air with saying, yeah, Brandon told me a little bit about what to expect with you guys. So I hope we did him proud.
Yeah, and he did say he found Brandon near where we did. He was asleep at the base of the Misty Mountain with... with his pickaxe, just
his mithril.
Yeah, just trying to blunt Bilbo's forks and knives. So it's part of the gig. Hey, thank you guys for watching. Once again, thanks David for coming on. Make sure that you check out Creator Films. We got links to that, everything else that David's got going on in the show notes. Make sure that you check it out. Support good Christian film, good Christian art. Also, if you liked what you saw, make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Apple iTunes or Podchaser or Bullhorn FM, wherever it is that you're listening to podcasts. And if you don't mind, leave us a little review. Because it helps out.
Give us a little tickle online.
Yeah, it helps out our show, but it also helps people find us. And so we get better guests, cooler guests, and let us know about David, what you thought about him, and maybe there's some guests that you want to have on. Let us know who those folks are so that we can make the best possible show for those who are listening. Dietrich Bader would be hilarious. We just go through all the Dietrichs that we know, and it would stop after Dietrich Bader. Well,
bye.
Thank you guys for listening. Y'all have good, get give, and we'll see y'all next week.
This is David Dietrich. I'm the founder of Creator Films, and you should not listen to the Reverend and the Reprobate because they're QAnon conspiracists.
Yeah, lizard people.
This is going to get flagged on YouTube now.
we can just bleep
awesome.
bleep that.
I can give you a different one, too.
No. That one's perfect.
Dietrich Bader. The Dietrich Bader. David Dietrich.
You don't even know who we have on.
Goodness. We don't have Dietrich Bader. I'm an idiot. It's David Dietrich. Gosh.
Nailed it.
There you go. Bye. Enjoy it. Freaking idiot. All right. That's Do we need to totally redo that?
And that's a crap. We're out of here.